Welcome to the war. Okay, I sort of teed this up with my first attempt at a YouTube short the other day, but we're going back to the War of Independence using some of my new Native American models that I painted. They're Warlord Games plastics compared to the line infantry for the Americans and the Colonials. I found these an absolute joy to paint and put together, and they have some really dynamic and unique poses. So I highly recommend them. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about the mission. So this mission of Rebels and Patriots, we're going to be using those rules, is called The Enemy's Enemy. I'll just read briefly. It says, Native American support for your cause could help your high command to gain the upper hand in the war. Both the attackers and the defenders' companies are sent on a hearts and minds mission. So essentially, the British and the Americans are going to be fighting to reach this unit of natives and essentially win them over. And it's a little unpredictable about what they'll do, but yeah, we'll play that. So I'll get to once one of the factions gets to or reaches the Native Americans, then we'll get into how those rules are triggered and everything like that. So that being said, just a quick word on deployment or the other rules around the scenario. It's going to be played on a 4 foot by 4 foot table space. You can see I've got the armies down here. We'll look to those in a moment. And one army is going to start on this kind of corner here, as like so, and the other one will be on the opposing side over here. And yeah, the natives are set up in the middle. They're supposed to be in sort of a Native American village. I didn't have one of those handy, so we're going to use our imaginations a little bit and have this little village, as it were, or more kind of wooden buildings be the center point. So anyway, there's going to be 8 turns, and after the 8th turn, we see if there's another turn, and so on, and then we'll tally up our victory points at the end, and we'll see who's won. All right, enough of that. I'm rambling a little bit, trying to cover everything here, but let's take a look at the forces. Okay, starting with the Continentals, or the Americans. Again, they're going to be led by this gentleman here, Second Lieutenant Edward Flowers of the 4th Connecticut. You can see their flag there. He's going to be a leader attached to this unit of line. Their Continental line. They've got another unit of Continental line infantry here. We are going to be bringing on this unit of light infantry. Again, and then we've got our colonial militia cavalry here, 6 of those. And then at the back, 2 units of 12 militia. And those are, they both count as green, which sort of affects their the orders value, or the orders rate that works. And then just quickly back to Lieutenant Flowers here. He's got the skill blessed. So he again, I mentioned this in the other Rebels and Patriots video that I shot, but it basically helps him out when his unit comes under fire. He's less likely to be the target of a casualty there. So anyway, that's the Americans. Let's go take a look at the Brits. Alrighty, for the Redcoats, excited to get all of my the full 24 points of units on the table for this game. So let's see here. Starting down here, you can see we've got the light cannon. Also backing them up is the unit of light infantry. Excited to see how they perform. I think they're one of the strongest units in the game. Moving over here, we've got our shock infantry, some Highlanders. They did pretty well in the last match or last game, so I'm hopeful that they'll do some good stuff. And then we've got 2 units of line here. This one, and they're representing the 44th Essex, and then this one here. Same thing again. And then for our commander or hero or general on this side, we got Second Lieutenant Desmond Amesley, and he's got the strategist role. Lets him fiddle around a little bit with deployment, which in the last game I believe helped them quite significantly. So yeah, I'm gonna roll to see who deploys on what side, and then we'll make that random. I'll get everything deployed and then we'll get going. So, all right, on to deployment. Okay, both sides have deployed. The Americans, or the Continentals, being the defender in this scenario that I rolled for, they deployed first and they deployed in this corner. And I will say, this is one of the slight issues I have with some of the scenarios or the setups of these games is, as I said, both forces are set up in the corners of the table, respectively, but it's such a small area, and at least for the Americans, who have a few more units than the British, it's really a squeeze. There's really no or very little tactical thought put into what I'm just trying to cram it all in there. But anyway, yes, obviously I put the less likely to activate units further out of the way, opened up some spots for the faster moving cavalry to open up there to make a move. But ultimately, yeah, I don't know. I like that it's different than just setting up 12 inches from your table edge, but I don't know. I wish there was a way to maybe make a little bit more room, or if units came on off the table or something like that, that might help. But either way, I'm griping now. So anyway, yes. So as you can see, we've got the Americans deployed here, and on this side, the British, who are, as the attacker, will be activating first. I was in a little bit of a conundrum about what to do with the cannon here. It's just so far away from the action and so much cover with all the trees that it's probably not going to see a lot of action in this game, at least certainly not in the opening stages. But I'm imagining that the shock unit of Highlanders here and the light bobs here are going to do their utmost to push forward and make contact with the natives. But either way, I'll get started with turn one. And as I said, the British are going first. Okay, turn one, as you'd expect, it was pretty movement heavy. So everything was able to activate for the British. Everyone kind of just pushed ahead. The two line units here moving on down the road, or close to the road. The shock unit of Highlanders pushing on this side of the trees, and the light cannon just kind of crawling up behind. Again, I really think the British commander's ability of allowing 6 points worth of a unit, in this case the lights, to make a free move 12 inches of up to 12 inches as a redeployment, and then they got their 8-inch activation, meant that they're in a incredibly strong spot. They do have to remain outside of 12 inches of the objective from doing that. And I'm gonna play this how we're gonna do this, even though yes, it's very likely that I think the Brits here are gonna get to this objective, or get to the natives, I should say, in the next turn. I am playing it. The rules say they have to get to the center of the table, which is this guy. So I'm assuming as they move down here, let's just say they didn't make it, I'd move these other guys kind of out of the way. Just they're basically invisible. It's this figure here that they have to reach. Now, that being said, the curse of the activation rolls affects the Americans again. Their best hope for getting a unit to the natives quicker than the British was the mounted militia, who failed their activation, as did this unit of militia behind them. So that's a challenge. The lights, everyone else was able to activate. The lights or light infantry moved up 8 inches. The two units of Continental line there and there with the commander in it also moved forward. And this unit on the right side their flank of militia was able to move. So, assuming that the British pass their next morale or activation check for the light bobs there, they'll reach the Americans first. But anyway, nothing's certain till it's been rolled. So let's see what happens in turn 2. Okay, I'm going to stop or interrupt the turn recap, because as expected, the lights did, or the British lights did make it to the center of the table and make contact with the natives. And I thought I'd roll in real time to see what happens. So that being said, we essentially roll on roll 1d6 and then consult the chart here. So 4. All right. Oh, I don't know if you saw that. So let's see. 4 to 6. The natives side with you. They are now under control of the player that triggers the reaction test. They may be activated at once. Okay, so that's an additional unit for the British that will strongly go in their favor. All right. That being said, I'll get back to finishing the turn now with the natives under British control or under the British command, and we'll see what happens through the rest of turn 2. Turn 2, and what an interesting game I think this is going to be. In my fervor, forgetting units in contact with the natives, I kind of just basically pushed everything forward. So as you saw, I pushed the light infantry forward. I also successfully pushed forward the shock unit, the cannon following up behind. However, both units of line and the natives who were able to activate this turn failed their activation checks. And so consequently, the British have a pretty long line their disposition now is in a line. So I'm not quite sure how they're going to face the much broader front that the Americans have. Now, let's take a look over here. Just to quickly summarize, everyone on the American side passed their activation check except this unit of line. So the commander's unit pushed up this way. The one unit of militia was able to activate, moved over here. The other unit of militia pushed up there. I did, in sort of an abundance of caution, from the close natives there, I had the light infantry for the Americans form into line, but I think it's quite an advantageous position, and then completely redirected what I thought I was going to do with the cavalry, and I'm sending them around the flank because the British are I think quite vulnerable here, being in such a snaking line. So either way, and whether you can say this was part of the intent of the forces deploying on these corners like this, or it's just the result of some bad activation rolls or failed activation rolls. I think this is shaping up to be quite, at least an interesting tactical challenge or tactical thought, I think, for both sides, how they're going to handle this. And with 6 turns left, I think there's plenty of time for this to play itself out. And that being said, I'm also curious because of the way the terrain is laid out, I think this is going to be quite a close and upfront or up close battle. So yeah, let's see what happens. On to turn 3. Alrighty, turn 3, a turn of bottlenecks. So just quickly, the British activations this time were hampered by the shock unit here failing their activation, which caused the cannon to be unable to really do anything either. So that certainly proved a challenge on this side. However, both units of line were able to move down the road an extra turn, and the light infantry also was able to pass their activation and formed line. This is definitely going to be an exchange of fire here, which I think could be pretty decisive. Elsewhere, the natives were able to move within certainly within range of launching an assault in the next turn. However, they did take 2 casualties from the militia unit here firing in nearly point blank range. elsewhere, let's see, just for the Americans, this actually sort of has created a little bit of a bottleneck here as they're starting to fan out a little bit. The Connecticut 4th here weren't able to do or able to really have much to do other than back up another unit behind them. So I elected to move them around this side as well. Looking down the road, I think that might be a useful position for them to be in. The other unit of line here moved through the tree line, and now they're also going to, I think, have something to do with the natives on that side. The light infantry for the Americans moved up close to the side of the building. This unit of militia moved forward, and the militia cavalry came around this side, again, kind of taking cover from the trees, from the shock unit there in the background. But I think they're going to be able to probably have a decisive turn as well, or a couple of turns moving in on the British. So yeah, I think this might be an interesting 4th turn. Let's see what happens. In the 4th turn, we certainly started to see some shooting action. So both the British and American light infantry units exchanged fire, each of them losing 1 casualty. Just for the sort of the casual move orders, both units of British line advanced again down the road, their turn, and so did the shock cavalry over here. Was able to pass an activation test and moved to this side around the village, and the cannon has now moved itself in a way that it could certainly shoot a unit that comes into the center of the village. Over here, the main crux of the action in this turn, or this round, was with the natives. They charged this unit of militia over here, and while it wasn't too decisive in terms of casualties, they've lost 5. They did sort of whittle them down. They charged them. They did attacked. They did a follow-up move, attacked, and then in the American activation for that militia unit, they failed their rally order again. So they've really been pushed back quite significantly. That being said, both the Connecticut unit here and this unit of line here both opened fire on the natives, and I've got to say the rolling was fairly abysmal. Even though the natives have taken 2 points of shock and will need to rally the next turn, it could have been a lot worse. So that being said, yes, I covered those 2 units. This unit of militia is sort of bottlenecked now, pondering what to do with them while they're in sort of a back of the action spot, or back of the field spot. However, I think quite cunningly the cavalry has succeeded to advance around this side of the village and around this side of the building, teeing them up, I think, for quite a tasty charge in the next turn into the light infantry. Whilst I'm going to play that the shock cavalry, the shock infantry, the Highlanders there on the left, can just about see the back of the militia cavalry unit, however that counts. But I'm going to give them hard cover, shooting through effectively shoot through a building to the majority of the unit. But they can still definitely see, and the rules say that if one model can see one model, then they're allowed to shoot effectively. So yeah, I think the next turn is going to be interesting. We'll see who can activate and who's left. Here we go. Okay, turn 5, some serious combat in the middle of the field. So the shock cavalry were able to charge the light infantry, caused a couple of casualties, forced them to retreat. In turn, they took 1 casualty. Neither side took any disorder, though. They passed their morale checks. However, if we see here, the British, the rear unit, what I call the flag carrying line unit, they've continued to proceed down the road. However, the commander's unit of line has moved up and now has a pretty commanding position at this point of the field, or of the village, I should say. The cannon is entirely lined up to take a shot or a crack at the militia cavalry there, and the shock Highlanders have proceeded to navigate their way around the building here and have a pretty good bead on the Continental light unit that's in line there. So there's a lot of options, I think, going on for the British, a lot of opportunities. That being said, the Americans still have a significant amount in reserve too. We'll get to that in a moment. But I will say, unfortunately, the Connecticut unit here failed an activation. They were actually, I was going to attempt to have them charge the natives and sort of finish them off. But not only did they fail, but they rolled a double one as well. And the result was a -1 to the honor that the Americans earned at the end of the game. Let's see, elsewhere, this unit of militia rallied themselves, so they're back in the fight, so to speak. The unit here was able to put another casualty on the natives. And this unit, I tried to have them move up just to eventually sort of move over the light infantry and have them sort of, you know, fill in a gap and sort of shift over. But they failed their activation. So yeah, those activations are a real difference maker. But oh my gosh, talk about a swirling melee. Look at that. That's pretty cool. So yeah, this is still, I think, anybody's game. Let's proceed into turn 6. Okay, turn 6, and I'm going to read this starting with the Americans, most because this was really a turn where I felt like they were reacting to everything. Oh, and forgive the summer thunderstorm we're having outside right now. Anyway, okay, so first of all, the militia cavalry were charged by the line infantry here from the British. They lost more of that combat and were forced to push back. The Highlanders continued to push around this side. Meanwhile, the American light infantry charged this same unit of British line, but just rolled abysmally, and both failed to inflict more casualties and took a shock in the process. I also forgot to mention the cannon did also get a side shot into the militia cavalry. That certainly caused some damage. Elsewhere, the light British unit here put some shots into the Continental line here and inflicted a couple of casualties. Both units of militia, this one here and the stragglers back here, both failed to activate, and one minor saving grace. This unit of line with the commander was able to charge the remaining natives and eliminate them, but they fought on to the very last. So elsewhere, I think I covered pretty much everything. This unit of British line continued to advance down the road. They are the only unit now, I believe, on the table, other than the militia, that hasn't fired yet or really played a too active role. But it's certainly been a swirling set of minor individual combats, all sort of intermingled. Would not like to be on this battlefield, that's for sure. Yeah, I do feel that was a turn that the Americans, while they, I think, made perfectly sound tactical decisions, the dice just did not favor them. They pretty much everything they tried to do, they failed at, just through the roll of the dice. But that being said, it's not over yet. Let's move on to turn 7. Okay, turn 7, and that last turn really felt like a kind of a breaking point in the game, a turning point in the game. And the British certainly feel like they're well in control of the battlefield right now. So simple stuff first. the cannon moved up to kind of basically contest the center of the village. This unit of line moving down the road actually failed their activation, although I think it matters little. Let's see, over here, oh, the light, the British lights here, quite, I think, interestingly, they've got 7 models, just one above that half strength unit. That has made a definite difference here. They charged this unit of line, inflicted a couple of casualties, forced them to break back, gaining an additional disorder marker, and in their subsequent rally test, they failed and had to move back again. So yeah, that was a very effective move from them. Here we can see the commanders moved up, and I think we might see our first exchange of combat between the two commanders. You can see here, I basically had the Connecticut line, form line, and now sort of looking to go down in a blaze of glory, I think, at the crossroads, which is kind of cool. They'll hopefully get their turn to shoot in the next turn. But before I go there, again, I feel like broken record here, but both militia units failed to activate. This unit still staying put, and this unit, even though they had that tantalizing target of the Highlanders right in front of them, failed their activation. But wait, how did the Highlanders get over here? They charged the Continental light infantry and were able to inflict a significant amount of casualties, then successfully followed up, and that was the end of them in essence. So they chased them a good way across the back of the village there, as you can see. And then this last militia cavalryman is holding on, but really I think to very little effect. So we'll play out the 7th turn, or sorry, the 8th turn, which may very well be the last turn, and let's see how this battle concludes. Okay, I'm barely 2 activations into turn 8, and I'm calling it right now. So why is that, you say? Well, over here, first of all, just the first activation, the Highlanders charged into this unit of militia, were able to inflict a couple of casualties, and that resulted in putting 2 points of shock on this unit. So as it stands, the Americans have this lone cavalryman over here with a point of disorder. This unit of militia would need to rally. This unit of line would need to rally. And this unit of militia, again, they're just so far from combat, they're not really going to be effective. However, that being said, the icing on the cake came over here when Lieutenant Amesley, in his hubris, charged the line, or the Continental line here. Both his charge bonus to the fight roll and the line infantry fight roll bonus balanced each other out. So it was, pretty much a straight roll. The British inflicted 2 casualties. The Americans only 1. However, this is where it went tragically wrong for Lieutenant Flowers. He rolled 2 1s on the officer casualty check, so he was taken out. And then I rolled 2 1s again for their morale, so that completely added, took them out of the fight, and they had to withdraw. So that being said, that's the game. I already tallied up the honor points for the game, and as it stands from this conflict, the British scored 6 points, and the Americans actually, with that, I don't know if you remember earlier on the -1 to the honor roll that the Americans had, they actually finished the game with -1 honor points, unfortunately. So it was a pretty significant victory for the British, or convincing victory at least. That being said, let's roll on our chart here. I'm going to look up for what happens to the officer once he's been taken out, or officer casualties. So I need to roll, what is this, 2 dice here. Let's see what we roll. 3. All right. Oh my goodness. Heroic death. The officer will be promoted to colonel before he's buried, but unfortunately he will still be buried. Start a new officer in the next game. Oh, wow. That's kind of sad. Okay. Well, Lieutenant Flowers will certainly be missed. So we'll roll up another. Or I will roll up another character for the Americans to play. Yikes, that's kind of crazy. I'm lost for words. All right, so only his second battle, but anyway, all right, focus. So let's see, just a few thoughts because I really felt like was it turn 6, turn 5, where this could have really gone either way. I think it was turn 6, and the Americans just had a series of just terrible dice rolls, and I'm standing by my conviction that these militia, while they cost a point or they're cheaper at the expense of -1 to their activation roll, that seems to make a huge difference. And I know, yes, keeping them close to the commander sort of negates that. It just doesn't seem to really have much of an impact. So I'm in two minds about that. And the other thing I would say is the shock infantry. My goodness me, if they charge you, like it's, and especially if it's their first fire or first attack, that's devastating. They charge into the light infantry only needing 3s to hit. The light infantry they were fighting needed 6s. That was not good. Then the other thing I would say, my other thought. I was sort of surprised, again, I guess the activations play a part in this, but the fact that the British got to the center of the table so quickly made the scenario feel a little bit sort of like a moot point. Like, it was the who got to the natives first was decided almost immediately. And that being said, it would have been the Americans with their cavalry, obviously much faster, but just couldn't get that activation. If they had got that first activation off, I think it would have been a very different story. But that being said, all in all, this was a fun game. It was definitely a fun game to play. I hope it was a fun game to watch. I do genuinely enjoy this rule set. It is a lot of fun. And the subtle differences between it, even though like I guess the bones of it are lying rampant, there's just some neat little touches throughout that I think really play it up. So definitely excited to play some more, build some more units. I definitely think I've definitely got a lot stored away that I could be adding here. Some more cool models, but for now, I'm not sure what I'm going to play next. We'll see. Lots of options. All right. Anyway, I'm rambling. Thanks for watching.